Peace does not switch off the mind of a former soldier. When reality shatters and the instinct of war takes control, who will be the next target in his sights? The sound. It is always the sound that betrays sanity first. What is it that you hear? Fresh water kissing the perfectly manicured grass of the suburbs? Privilege. What does Marcus's fractured brain hear? The blades of a Sikorsky tearing through air saturated with dust and death. Hell descending from the heavens on a peaceful Tuesday morning. Welcome to the mind of a retired hero. 7:30 a.m. Pastel blue light floods the immaculate kitchen. Sarah prepares breakfast with the delicacy of someone who believes piously in the security of aluminum locks. The American dream, plasticized in all its glory. But observe our subject A. Marcus forces a mechanical smile. He brings the cup of black coffee to his lips. A model of stability and reintegration, right? Wrong. Reality is a luxury that his prefrontal cortex no longer has the bandwidth to render. The scent invading his nostrils isn't sweet batter on the griddle. It is pure ozone, oxidized blood, and burnt gunpowder. Beneath his bare feet, the cold porcelain gives way to sand and spent shell casings. His biology is operating in a different time zone. The time zone of death. Let's make a surgical incision into this farce. In forensic medicine, we call this total systemic failure. Marcus hasn't reached the REM stage of sleep in over 72 hours. The government spent millions to fuse this man's amygdala to a high-frequency threat radar. But when you deprive him of sleep, you pull the biological trigger of severe oxidative stress. The brain, flooded with lethal levels of cortisol, literally begins to devour its own synapses to remain on high alert. Human hardware wasn't designed to run tactical hypervigilance software 24 hours a day. The result? A brutal cognitive dissonance. The limbic system invents the enemy to justify the body's exhaustion. Marcus isn't eating breakfast. The predator is merely sweeping a hostile perimeter, waiting for the anomaly. Human biology possesses a pathetic design flaw. It's called empathy. We look at youth and see the future, but to the tactical mind cornered in a state of hypervigilance, innocence is not a virtue. It is a gross vulnerability, a breach in the security perimeter. Observe the ignorant prey stepping onto the killing field. The boy carries in his hands the tool of his own ruin, the red, the exact frequency of the fatal error. To Marcus's brain, already saturated by oxidative stress, the color doesn't register as a celebration. It registers as the emergency visor of a collapsing bunker. It registers as the pool of blood that never dried on the streets of Fallujah. But the true terror doesn't reside in the color. It resides in the physics of play. The child sinks his short fingers into the rubber, squeezes, stretches. The thin latex film gives, distending, absorbing the elastic pressure. The ignorance of the prey is touching. The boy doesn't know that it's not just the balloon being stretched to the breaking point. It is the last fragile membrane of sanity keeping his father from killing him. In Marcus's brain, the amygdala screams. The prefrontal cortex shuts down. The adrenal gland injects a lethal dose of epinephrine straight into the bloodstream. The IFF system, identify friend or foe, crashes to a blue screen. Target unrecognized. Imminent threat in the sector. The rubber gives way, and with it, reality collapses. Sound travels at 340 meters per second. But panic is instantaneous. Upon hitting Marcus's saturated eardrum, that harmless bang of torn latex bypasses the logical cortex and strikes the amygdala directly. Neuroscience calls this limbic hijack. The primitive brain takes the reins. Blood is brutally drained from the digestive system and ejected into the musculature of the legs and arms. The heart batters the sternum. The exhausted black man who was drinking coffee died in that exact millisecond. What rose from that chair was the executioner. The dining room has been reclassified. It is now a hostile perimeter. Sarah, driven by love and ignorance, runs toward the danger. Primary tactical error. Maternal instinct is beautiful poetry, but in war, it's merely a swift death sentence. The IFF failure, identify friend or foe, suffers a catastrophic anomaly in the Marine's retina. The woman he loves is swallowed by the thermal visor of his psychosis. The survival algorithm dictated the rule. Whoever runs toward you after an explosion carries a detonator. Observe the physics of disaster. He doesn't attack her out of hate. Hate is a human emotion, imprecise and sloppy. He intercepts her with the lethal, cold fluidity of 1,000 hours of muscle memory drilled into his DNA by the state. His hand, a claw of obsidian, crushes the fragile bones of her wrist. 80 kilos of pure kinetic energy project the target against the nearest barrier. The wood groans. Porcelain plummets from the sky like a rain of shrapnel. In his mind, there are no broken plates. There is only the wreckage of an ambushed military convoy. He raises his right fist. The perfect angle. The downward strike designed by military engineering to collapse the trachea and silence the threat in less than 2 seconds. The kinetic force accumulated in his deltoids is enough to crush Sarah's skull against the stone counter. But biology is a science full of poetic anomalies. In the epicenter of the cortisol storm, Sarah's thin, trembling fingers, the free hand desperately trying to survive, brush against the sweaty, black skin of his forearm. The touch, the soft texture of skin, the scent of lavender soap pierces the thick wall of hallucinatory cordite. It's a short circuit in the limbic matrix. Reality enters a head-on collision with the military software. The crimson visor blinks, tears into digital static, and evaporates. The blindness recedes, the blue light returns, and the perfect soldier, the infallible predator, looks at his own hands and realizes that the enemy he was about to slaughter was the mother of his children. Biology is a relentless machine. The neurochemical bath of epinephrine ceases abruptly, and what remains is the moral hangover of a shattered ego. The war hero, the infallible predator designed by the state. He looks at his own handiwork, and the tactical HUD can no longer protect him from the truth. What he sees is not a neutralized insurgent. It is the woman he swore to love, fallen in a trench of broken porcelain, with bruises forming beneath the dark skin of her trachea. In forensic psychology, we dissect the acute sympathetic response, the archaic principle of fight or flight. The military machine failed miserably in the fight, for the enemy was its own fracture. There remains only one path for the cowering primate: flight. Marcus flees. He treads upon the wreckage of his own home without registering the pain of the glass cutting his soles. Physical pain is an insignificant joke compared to the bankruptcy of his value system. Observe the poetic irony of suburban architecture. He runs in panic down a hallway lined with photographs of a perfect family. Every hanging frame is a nail in the coffin of his sanity, a smiling reminder of everything he has just destroyed in under 4 seconds. He isolates the anomaly, locks himself in the office, his personal bunker at the end of the world. The human mind, when cornered by intolerable guilt, activates obscure defense mechanisms. He has initiated a psychological quarantine. He locked the door, believing, in his purest ignorance, that he was leaving the threat on the outside. Poor devil. The oak door does not hold back the neural collapse. He sits in the dark, his heart trying to punch through his ribs, and stares into the rectangular abyss on the desk. The black screen of the laptop. The dull reflection shows a man huddled in the shadows, alone. But in the acute phase of oxidative stress and limbic failure, faulty hardware never stays alone for long. The room is perfectly sterilized. The incubator is ready for the virus to mutate. Absolute terror doesn't hide under the suburban bed. It has the key to your house and sits in your office chair. Marcus searches for a trace of humanity in the black mirror of the screen, but solitude is a pathetic illusion. The fried hardware has found its counselor. Sergeant Miller reports for duty, bringing with him the unmistakable scent of a mass grave. In forensic psychiatry, the human mind is studied as a blind machine of ego preservation. When reality becomes too hideous, when a decorated family man realizes he has just crushed the bones in his own wife's neck, the brain seeks an emergency escape route. To avoid collapsing under the weight of lethal guilt, neurochemistry activates an extreme survival heuristic, the Capgras Delusion. Let us perform an autopsy on this lie. In medical literature, Capgras is a catastrophic failure of neurological recognition. The patient comes to believe that their family was murdered and replaced by imposters, perfect replicas, simulacra with a hidden agenda. But to the dead sergeant whispering in Marcus's ear, this isn't a clinical diagnosis. It's a tactical briefing. The hallucination pulls smoke through a torn throat and delivers the perfect absolution. That woman in the kitchen isn't your wife, Marine. They are sleeper agents who have infiltrated the perimeter. The original target has been eliminated. Now, only hostiles remain. Observe the macabre miracle of this metamorphosis. The guilt evaporates, sucked into the vacuum of a frigid pragmatism. Marcus's brain forgives itself by rewriting the victim. The tears dry instantly on his face, His spine cracks, assuming the ballistic rigidity of one who has found a purpose. The delusion didn't plunge him into irrational madness. On the contrary, it handed him an impeccable, murderous clarity. The operating system reboots, latency ceases, and the devoted husband dies definitively in that chair, giving way to what the system programmed him to be, a surgical instrument of sector clearance. Observe the anatomy of purpose. There is nothing more dangerous on this planet than a madman who has just found a tactical justification for his delusion. The Capgras diagnosis cured his hesitation. Doubt evaporated. Marcus crosses the dark bedroom with the skeletal alignment of an apex predator at the top of the food chain. He no longer flees from himself. He walks toward the steel altar the state taught him to worship. The university diploma on the wall? A joke. A cheap social placebo. A framed and plasticized lie to prove to the suburban neighbors that the Marine had been rehabilitated. But the truth... The truth was always embedded in the drywall, fireproof and impervious to human morality. The biometric safe demands his fingerprint, the same fingerprint archived by the Department of Defense to protect him from external threats. The scanner's green light recognizes the flesh. It confirms the identity of the weapon. Access granted. And facing the private apocalypse in his own home's arsenal, efficiency dictates the golden rule. In a close quarters battle environment, CQB, physics and architecture render an assault rifle a long, lethargic encumbrance. Death in the hallway demands proximity. His hand discards the heavy military caliber and embraces the intimate lethality of black Austrian polymer. A Glock 19. 589 grams of cold engineering, mathematically designed with a single universal objective: to accelerate a lead projectile to the exact velocity required to pierce bone density and crush consciousness. The hollow point bullet rises into the firing chamber. The striker spring tensions. His nervous system mimics the weapon. Both are perfectly armed. There is no longer any possible return in the latency of this dawn. The thin wooden door of the office is the only shield separating him from downstairs, where the two simulated thermal threats cry, holding each other in the dark. The hunt has just begun. Physics teaches us that gravity is a blind and inescapable force. It pulls the dead leaves to the suburban grass with the same indifference with which it pulls this man's soul into the abyss. Marcus exits the bunker. The primate panic has evaporated. The executioner has taken the reins. Every step he treads upon is not polished wood. In the fractured mind of this Marine, he is descending the ramp of an assault freighter, plunging into the exclusion zone. The entire house is submerged in the dense silence of a Tuesday at 3 a.m. The pastel blue of the walls is now a bad joke, swallowed by the predatory shadows of the hallway and repainted by the sickly red leaking from his own malfunctioning retinas. Let us make the final incision into the beast's cortex. Observe the physiology of the predator at the apex of the hunt. At this exact moment, Marcus's brain activates the tunnel vision protocol. The visual cortex cuts the power supply to everything in the periphery. The family photographs, the toys on the floor, all of it ceases to exist, swallowed by absolute pitch black. The brain forces him to see only one thing: the direction of the kill. And the sound. Oh, neurochemistry is fascinating. The central nervous system triggers auditory exclusion. The ticking of the clock on the living room wall disappears. The wind beating against the windows, null. He no longer hears the civilized world. He hears only the metric of his own breathing and the non-existent radio signal his psychosis transmits to him. Forensic psychiatry calls this a state of survival hyperfocus. I call it silencing the conscience so the trigger can be pulled without human morality daring to interfere. He reaches the ground floor. The perimeter sweep is complete. The crimson HUD blinks on his mental screen, identifying the narrow hallway ahead. At the far end, the white door. The target is not in motion. The target is cornered. The mathematics of death is brutally simple, and Marcus is seconds away from solving the equation. A ballistic equation always demands two variables. The predator does not exist in a vacuum. On the other side of the hallway, where wood divides madness from reality, the prey awaits. Sarah is huddled on the floor in the darkest corner of her son's sanctuary. The excruciating pain in her fractured shoulder is silenced by a massive injection of maternal instinct. Her blood is the only real thing in this tragedy, the only genuine red in a sea of crimson hallucinations. She holds the boy tightly, covering his mouth. She prays. She cries. The hideous irony of human hope is fascinating, isn't it? She stares fixedly at the white bedroom door. She focuses on the cheap aluminum doorknob, begging an absent god that the rusted metal latch can hold back the abyss. Civilian ignorance is a blessing. Sarah looks at the hollow pine door and sees a shield, an insurmountable border. But the executioner on the outside doesn't see a wall. His psychosis's thermal visor has already pierced through matter. Through the wood, the delusion maps two intense heat signatures clustered on the floor. Enemy simulacra. Thermal camouflage has failed. The target is marked. Let us do the math of futility. A 9mm caliber bullet, fired from the barrel of a Glock 19, travels at 380 meters per second. It carries with it 480 joules of kinetic energy. Sarah's door is 3 centimeters thick, made of pressed wood fiber. To the incandescent lead, that door has the same ballistic density as a sheet of wet paper. It is not a physical barrier. It is merely a temporary curtain before the stage fills with viscera. The killing machine parks at the threshold of the event horizon. Marcus breathes slowly. The cold steel barrel mathematically aligns with the center of mass of the larger heat signature. The woman's thumb caresses her son's hair. The husband's index finger caresses the trigger of the weapon. Two worlds, two intentions, separated by 3 centimeters of illusion. Exactly 2 millimeters of metallic pressure remain to transform the silence of the night into an irreversible hell. The chemical reaction takes 3 milliseconds. 160 decibels of sonic fury in a closed hallway. The acoustic pressure is enough to tear the tympanic membrane and cause micro-hemorrhages in the inner ear. But in the anatomy of this disaster, physics did much more than deafen the shooter. Physics murdered the madness. The white flash from the muzzle flash, acted like electroconvulsive therapy directly on the visual cortex. A brutal reboot of the limbic system. The light shock shatters the Capgras Delusion into 1,000 pieces. The tactical visor, the crimson overlay that justified the homicide, shuts down. The latency ceases. The Marine abandons the combat zone in the Middle East, and the husband violently returns to the suburbs. The smoke dissipates under the cold light. The smell of cordite is real, clinging to the palate. And there, on the floor of the child's bedroom, the operating system of his mind finally updates the IFF. There are no spies. There are no thermal simulacra or sleeper threats. The virus shrinks before the crushing gravity of biology and truth. The bullet designed to neutralize threats did exactly what it was engineered to do. Sarah is down. The projectile pierced the wood and lodged in the shoulder he had already fractured in the kitchen, tearing muscle and tissue, painting his own son's pajamas with the red his delusion so desperately wanted to see. The recognition failure has been corrected. Marcus's brain has recognized his family, but the software update arrived a fraction of a second too late. The Titan's knee gives way, and the monster, now fully conscious of his own monstrosity, collapses. Total systemic failure. The prefrontal cortex, once shut down by oxidative stress, force reboots. And when human logic returns to the mind of an executioner, guilt is not merely a feeling. Guilt is an extinction-level event on a cellular scale. Observe the end of the assembly line. Our subject A reaches out, attempting to offer a bandage to the wound he himself opened. But his wife's neuroplasticity has already altered as well. To her, that man is not the husband who makes breakfast. He is the monster urban legends warned her about. Her recoil, the look of repulsion and absolute dread, is the final blow that destroys the foundations of Marcus's ego. There is no aluminum deadbolt in the world that can protect him from that look. The state has arrived to collect its defective parts. They injected millions to build the perfect tactical machine. They sharpened the instinct, fused the brain to war, and then sent him back to the suburbs, hoping that a house with a green lawn and white picket fences would switch off the algorithm of death. But biology does not obey white picket fences. Peace does not repair military hardware. Peace merely gives it new targets. Marcus turns his face to the mirror. The neural latency is over. The Capgras Delusion has dissipated, and in the absence of ghosts, of visual glitches, and of military justifications, he realizes the most terrifying design flaw of the human mind. The abyss never needs to invade us. We carry it in our own baggage. There are no medals for the survivors of this internal war. The Shadow Noise archives are closed. Sleep well, but I never close my eyes. I am the blind spot.